everybody. Thanks for coming to pay respect to the life and legacy of Sgt Nicole Gee. It's fitting that today is also Women's Equality Day, and we're here to talk about a young woman, a hero, who was by many accounts without equal. I'd like to extend my gratitude to the captain and the crew for allowing us aboard your ship, Command Master Chief, Top Snipe, all the members of the Goat Locker, because we all know nothing happens on a U.S. naval vessel without our chief's mess. Thanks also to the family and friends who came out today. Brigadier General Armas, Sgt Major McDonald, appreciate you being here, Command Master Chief. So I want to tell a story today. Everyone has seen and experienced and appreciated this young woman's life through a different lens. I offer the view of a humble servant of Marines, a husband, and a father of 3 beautiful young Americans. On the 13th of August, 2021, I sent a signal message to the staff non-commissioned officers of CLB 24, asking them to please gather all the Marines and sailors in the maintenance bay. We were at Al Jaber Air Base in Kuwait, and we've been rehearsing for evacuation operations for a couple of weeks. The maintenance building was the only space large enough to get everyone together. It was out of the sun, and it afforded us some privacy. Inside the maintenance bay, I called the team into a school circle, a huddle for those who don't speak Marine. I asked them to turn their phones off, and I said, off, off. And I pulled mine out, and I slid my finger across the screen so they knew I was serious. They knew I was about to pass something we didn't want other people to hear. I said, we're going in. This was met by many positive guttural sounds that only Marines can make when they're excited about doing something. They wanted to go. I say right now, we're only sending the light package, but the heavy package needs to be ready to go as well. We had pre-planned packages based upon mission requirements. The light package had 40 Marines and sailors, the heavy about 140. So 40 would go in, and if we needed more, 100 more would show up. That was the plan. I said, listen up for your name, and I called the roll. On that list of names was Sgt Nicole Gee, and she sounded off with, "Here, Sergeant Major," when her name was called out. I first met Sergeant Gee on Camp Lejeune during one of my random walks through the Marines' workspaces. She was a corporal at the time, and she was standing next to Corporal Landon Workman. As I walked up, she made eye contact, and her right hand quickly came from behind her back as she hit me with a confident, firm handshake. "I'm Corporal Gee. Nice to meet you, Sergeant Major." The hand immediately returned to its proper position in the small of her back as soon as I loosed my grip. Now I'm a dad, and I have been for many years. I have 2 boys who I worry less about, because it's a man's world, and 1 girl who I worry the most about. Because even though we were supposed to have fixed it, largely, we still treat our women like it's a man's world. She started telling her mom and me that she wanted to be a Marine around the time she was 8 years old. Anytime I asked her what she was going to be in the Marines, she just looked back at me and say, "Better than you." Having met my wife while she was on active duty, and now having a daughter who was interested in serving, I constantly paid attention to the environment and its suitability for women. I also paid close attention to who would be leading my child if she were to join, and who would be an example for her. In a few seconds it took to grip and grin with the young corporal that I had just met, I decided that she'd been raised right, both by her family and by her Marine Corps leaders. She was a person with values. She knew her worth, and I felt like I could trust her. I decided that if my daughter were to be a Marine, I would want her to give off the same confident, I know who I am, warrior vibe that I just felt. I wanted my daughter to be like Corporal Gee, just based off first impressions. In the weeks and months that followed, Nicole continued to prove my gut feeling right and served passionately at a level above that expected of her grade and age. If anyone were to question my biased opinion as evidence, I submit the following excerpt from the nomination letter signed by the commanding officer recommending her for meritorious promotion to sergeant. I'm going to read this thing straight how it was. Corporal Gee is a ground electronics systems maintainer for CLB 24. Since her arrival, she has been an instrumental asset to the success of maintenance platoon and the battalion. She has promoted a sense of pride and accomplishment amongst the Marines and has a tremendous effect on her peers and subordinates alike. She is mature, poised, and a true professional that thrives in the most challenging of positions. In the absence of the Communications Maintenance Chief, Corporal Gee was hand-selected to take charge of her section due to her proven technical proficiency. She jumped at the opportunity for more responsibilities and performed with resourcefulness and enthusiastic determination to make a positive impact. Despite a heavy workload, she also took on the roles and responsibilities as an embark representative for maintenance platoon aboard the USS Iwo Jima. She ensured all the required support equipment, valuing more than $900,000 for the deployment, was packed correctly, containers were weighed accurately, and properly marked to ensure accountability as assets were embarked aboard the vessel. She did all this while maintaining readiness of 100% for the supporting equipment organic to her section. This Marine is a task-driven critical thinker who doesn't wait for the next task to be given, but instead identifies what the next task will be and accomplishes them on her own initiative. She leads Marines at a level seldom seen in Marines higher in grade and longer in service. Corporal Gee has always sought to be challenged, and she will continue to excel by pushing herself and those around her. Most recently, she volunteered to become a martial arts instructor, proving once again that there are no courses or challenges that she is not willing to overcome, so she can be a stronger leader for those in her charge. Additionally, she took on the responsibility of EKMI manager, a job normally held by a staff non-commissioned officer. She has shown the maturity and responsibility to take on this daunting task and excel at it. To date, Corporal Gee has facilitated 95 secondary repairable item exchanges for all 4 major subordinate commands on board the USS Iwo Jima. That's the end of the letter. Maturity, poise, true professional, seldom seen. At 23 years old, she was better than me. She possessed all the traits that I hope to give my daughter. She won the Meritorious Board. And we were now standing in the maintenance bay where that promotion happened just 11 days prior, on August 2nd, 2021. The Marines who were leaving on the advanced party quickly gathered their things and got ready to catch a flight. It was a small contingent of landing support Marines, the experts in all things Evacuation Control Center, or ECC. They were led by a captain, Corey Fitzpatrick, and a gunnery sergeant, Matt Munoz. We had just launched a corporal's course a few days earlier. Sergeant Gee was hand-selected to mentor Marines during the course, but we put everything on pause as the battalion became the main effort for the 24th MEU. For those of us who were not on the advanced party, it was seabag drag and hurry up and wait. When we finally hit the tarmac in Kabul on the morning of 15 August, the team on the ground had already been working through the night, and the gunny quickly snatched up Marines to allow tired people to catch a nap. It was eerily calm at this point, and the rest of us were shown to our quarters and found a way to get some food. We soon made our way to the terminal, which had been tactically claimed as Marine Corps territory by the young captain, so we could start figuring out how we're going to do things. The terminal was selected as a temporary site, but would work for the time being. And then chaos descended on the airport. Only a few hours in, I heard what sounded like high caliber rounds impacting concrete. I remember I chambered around as the Marines scrambled through closing doors towards the sound of war. Kabul had fallen to the Taliban, and we had a mess on our hands. You saw what you saw on the news, and we were in the thick of it. Sergeant Gee was there, calmly navigating whatever task came her way and leading the Marines in her charge. For about 48 hours, it was just our small group of 40 in a terminal crammed with people seeking refuge from an abusive regime. Gee always had a smile on her face and was extremely pleasant and comforting towards the people we were evacuating, as we got used to the sound of gunfire and flashbangs and the smell of fear. I remember when the flight line was finally under control, and we escorted the first group to the relative safety of the waiting C-17. Gee was about 20 feet in front of me as we shepherded the group of 300 or so through the night. When we got to the ramp of the aircraft, it was something out of a sci-fi movie. The light from within the aircraft illuminated the airman standing at the top of the ramp, and he held his hand in the air, pointing to his wrist. The only way he knows how to communicate that they had to have a tracking wristband to board. In unison, they all lifted their hands in the air, just like a scene out of the Hunger Games. Gee had such a big smile on her face. As we walked away, she said, "It feels so good to get them on the airplane." She did this many more times before reinforcements arrived. The heavy package showed up on the 17th, and we were happy to see the rest of the team. Our footprint was much larger now, and our women were quickly organized and shuffled away to begin searching people at the external gates of the airport. What was supposed to be a temporary site for the evacuation control center became permanent as we occupied more and more of the building. The staff NCOs and officers created 3 8-hour shifts, one shift working in the ECC, one shift doing odd jobs and position refinement, and one shift on rest. Due to the high volume of people and the workload, our ladies conducting searches were under no obligation to show up at the ECC, but Nicole could often be seen there during her rest time, helping other Marines and caring for evacuees, and always with a smile. On the 25th of August, I entered the second floor of the ECC. I saw Sgt Gee interacting with some people she had searched early at the gates. They seemed happy to see her, but they seemed even happier to be at the flight line. When Gee turned around, I noticed her face was pretty red and asked what happened. She expressed that she had just come off an 8-hour shift on the gates and it was really sunny that day. I said to her, "Light-skinned people like us have got to wear sunblock." Smiling, she replied, "Yes, we do, Sgt Major." That was the last thing I ever heard her say. On the 26th of August, I was standing outside the ECC, looking out toward the flight line, as we had done so many times because the alarm klaxon was going off and we had to stand to. It made an annoying sound and repeated the phrase "ground attack" over and over in this instance. On this side of the airport, we rarely heard anything other than the sound of the aircraft, unless the klaxon was going off. Corporal Lohman was standing about 10 feet away from me, at the ready. She reached into her pocket and grabbed her cell phone, looked at it, and then put it away. Her face became flushed, and her body language indicated extreme discomfort. I approached and asked, "What's up, warrior?" She looked at me, grabbed her phone, and unlocked the screen, then turned it so I could view the text. It was from one of the young women on the gates, and it simply said, "Sgt Gee didn't make it." Every ounce of my body wanted to crumble to the earth. "You good?" I said. She shook her head in the affirmative, stiffened her upper lip, and stood there firmly, like the warrior her sergeant had trained her to be. She never uttered a word. I walked off to notify the people who it was my duty to notify. I was a rep. We had a mission to accomplish, and everyone decided to push on with steely resolve. We had an opportunity to mourn later. We weren't the only people to suffer a great loss that day. 12 other U.S. service members lost their lives, 45 were wounded, and at least 170 Afghan civilians perished. Later that evening, I received a phone call from our parent command's regimental sergeant major. He's a longtime mentor and friend. He said, "Glenn, what the hell's going on out there?" I said, "Mike, I couldn't begin to describe it. He's known me long enough that he knew he didn't have to hear anything else." He let me know the families were worried and they needed to hear from the command. They were gathering them together for a town hall. He wanted me to send a message. This is the message I sent in that moment. To all our CLB families and friends, thank you for your unwavering support and resilience. Thank you for providing our Corps the absolute best and brightest American fighting men and women. Over the course of the past 18 months, I have had the pleasure of serving alongside your service member, and it has been the pinnacle of my 21 years of service. You all struggled with us through a demanding workup and an even more demanding deployment. I want you to know that our people have risen to the occasion. Under impossible circumstances, they have made things look easy. This team has a never-quit spirit, and they serve with a happy heart. They have consistently looked adversity in the face and laughed at its attempt to create discord. Nowhere has their grit shown more than here at HKIA. They have run 24-hour operations for 13 days, processing in excess of 80,000 people for evacuation. The humanity with which they serve the people of Afghanistan should make your heart swell with pride and your eyes fill with tears, as it does for me. I've received many comments from sister services, local nationals, veterans, and other nations' militaries on just how impressive our people are. My response is always the same. Nobody needs to tell a father to be proud of his own kids. I'm here. I see it every day. I want you all to know that the media has not done justice in conveying the story of the Marines and sailors who have just performed the largest non-combatant evacuation operation in history. You can and should be proud. I will dedicate the rest of my service to telling the story of our people's courage and sacrifice. Until we meet again, we remain always faithful to you and the American way of life. A couple days later, we lined the streets of the airport as a C-17 backed into position. The vehicle carrying Sgt Gee's casket rolled up, and I did my part to pull it out far enough so the Marines who would escort her aboard could grab the handles. It was heavy. I don't remember it being that heavy when we practiced. The figurative burden of command now manifested itself in the literal physical sense. The women grabbed a hold and moved forward as a team. They are so damn tough. And I'm so proud of them, I thought, as they carried out the most dignified and difficult duty. And they stayed until the end and did their job, just like their sergeant would have wanted them to. Back in Kuwait, there were constant reminders of Nicole's presence, mostly in the gyms, where she had broken most of the lifting records and her name was posted proudly on the walls. Some of the ladies refused to even attempt to break the records, just so her name could stay. On the 3rd of September, we gathered in the largest indoor space with seating on that base. Every chair was full, and there wasn't room to walk around. There were hundreds of people there to participate in Nicole's memorial. Her battlefield cross, the American flag, and the COB-24 unit colors were centered on the front of the room. Chaplain Noel Brooks opened the service, and service members from across the battalion took the opportunity to speak about her. The CO made his remarks, and then I was asked to call the roll. I centered myself on the room and called the names of 3 E5s who preceded G in the alphabet. 1 hospital corpsman 2nd class and 2 sergeants. Each one of them rose to their feet and sounded off with present when their name was called. Sgt G, Sgt Nicole Gee, Sgt Nicole L. Gee. Silence each time. The weight of her casket paled in comparison to the permanence of that silence. Taps played, and it took on a whole new meaning for many who had never lost a comrade before. I'll keep it together, I promise. I turned around and knelt before her cross. I placed my hand on the helmet and closed my eyes. Thank you, were the words that left my lips as I opened my eyes, stood and walked away in tears. Thank you for what? I've been searching for something for many years. Something which is best captured by a song released by the Black Eyed Peas in May of 2003 when Nicole was just 5 years old. The song is called Where is the Love? What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to drama, only attracted to the things that'll bring it trauma. Overseas, yeah, we're trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists living in the USA, the Bloods, the Crips, and the KKK. But if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then you're bound to get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate. And that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all. Feel the weight of the world on my shoulder. As I'm getting older, y'all people keep getting colder. Most of us only care about money making. Selfishness got us following the wrong direction. Wrong information always shown by the media. Negative images is the main criteria. Infecting the young minds faster than bacteria. Kids want to act like what they see in the cinema. Yo, whatever happened to the values of humanity? Whatever happened to the fairness and equality? Instead of spreading love, we're spreading animosity, lack of understanding, leading us away from unity. So I could ask myself, really, what is going wrong in this world that we're living in? People keep on giving in, making wrong decisions, only visions and then dividends, not respecting each other. Deny that, brother. A war is going on, but the reason's undercover. The truth is kept secret. It's swept under the rug. If you never know truth, then you never know love. Where's the love, y'all? Where's the truth, y'all? Where's the love? Nicole felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, and she said she loved it. She held crying babies and comforted scared women in the absolute worst of conditions. She put herself in harm's way, took on the toughest jobs, and protected her people with primitive ferocity, and she loved it. I don't align myself with any specific religion, but I do occasionally read religious texts for the sake of understanding. The Christian Bible, which our country and her values of freedom, liberty, and justice for all was based upon, has a passage that states, and I changed this since it's Women's Equality Day, greater love had no person than this, that they lay down their life for their friends. I did some quick math and decided that greater than this is the person willing to lay down their life for perfect strangers. Oddly enough, the protagonist in the latter half of the Christian text goes on to do the same. He lays down his life for all the inhabitants of earth, past, present, and future. This, to me, sounds very similar to what Sgt Gee and the 12 other Americans did on that day in Kabul. They provided a future for people who wouldn't have had one otherwise. So my thank you to Nicole was for showing me the truth through love. Thanks for showing me that selflessness is the way to peace. Thank you for teaching me that our country's all-volunteer military is made up of the greatest stock of humans on the planet. And those people had to have been loved and cared for so much that they chose a life of service so others could experience life the same. Thank you for giving me a reason to continue to wear this uniform and carry forward the legacy of the United States Marines. I will close on this. On the 1-year anniversary of that fateful day, I penned a letter to the Marines and sailors of CLB 24. And I know that in my position, anytime I open my mouth, I'm subject to scrutiny, internet trolls, has-beens, and wannabes who come out of the woodwork. Two things. One is I don't have social media. Two is I don't care what you think about me. I only care that you're thinking. I love these people. And we did something extraordinary together. So I'm willing to be vulnerable for the sake of telling their story and my truth. I've made some edits to fit the occasion. So it's from me to the Marines and sailors of CLB. And I see some of you in here. Subject to this letter is 3 years. First of all, I miss you. Today is the 26th of August, and it has been 3 years since tragedy rocked our hearts. What have you done with the time so freely given? 13 people gave us the time, including our Sgt Gee. Though I choke back emotion every time I consider thinking about it, I've used the time to reflect upon who we were as a team and the amazing things we did together. Consider the level of diversity we had amongst our team and how that became our greatest strength in times of challenge. While our fellow Americans struggled to get along, we embraced each other's differences and formed lifelong bonds in the process. The team was represented by men and women from nearly every race, religion, creed, and sexual orientation, with individually unique life origin stories. As we have the time to do so, I ask that you combat the negative, divisive narrative promulgated by our nation's enemies via different media platforms. You are the real American story. Let it be heard. The level of discipline, grit, and determination you showed during the most tumultuous and tragic of days has provided me with both respect and disdain for the actions of this current generation. Respect to you for the way you performed with such humanity, care, and joy on what were the darkest of days for many of the people you cared for. Respect for the way you carried yourself with pride and grace, a true representation of what it is to be an American service member. Disdain for all those with the exact same potential for greatness and grace, who squander the opportunity to help their communities in pursuit of personal comfort. Disdain for those who don't appreciate the time in life so freely given. What I know of the men and women I serve with is this: you warriors showed me that you are greater than the greatest generation. Show them all. Throughout our time together, we discussed the legacy of the Marines and sailors who have gone before us. We spoke of our responsibility to that legacy, always building, never degrading. We spoke of how it was not our legacy to stain. I have spent my time doing my level best to be a walking homage to that legacy, and yours. Today, on board the USS Iwo Jima, I will tell part of our story. I will ask the Marines and sailors to guide their actions as you work. I will speak of the lives we saved and the lives we lost. I will ask the Marines and sailors there to guide their actions with and remember their responsibility to your legacy. A legacy built by leaders like our Sgt G. Keep building. On a day which invokes both sadness and joy in my heart, this is my truth. Serving with you was the greatest privilege of my life. There are thousands of people who now have the opportunity to live a full and well-lived life due to the fruits of your character. You planted seeds in lives of young people, and those seeds have the potential to grow into something greater than anything we can imagine. Until we meet again, I remain always faithful to you, our Corps, and the American way of life. Never forget, always remember, Sgt Nicole Gee, Semper Fi. That's it for me.